Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? That's still playing. Let's fix that. There we go. Happy Wednesday, everyone. We took a week off, didn't we? And what a week to take off. I don't know if anyone else has been feeling these beautiful energies around the solstice and the full moon, but it's like, vroom, vroom, vroom. Norma Jean, how about you?
It's been so beautiful. Just beautiful. I'm so floaty. It's a lot right now is, after this weekend, it was wonderful. It was beautiful. It was fulfilling. And, being able to go up there and just kind of have this time ourselves just to kind of decompress from all that we've been doing. And it was great to be able to get back connected in a way that, I guess both of us haven't been able to on that level we've been needing to. So it's quite profound. I'm enjoying. I'm back in a place and space of I'm full of energy. I'm got some clarity. The elementals are talking to me so profoundly right now, and it's like I'm just loving life. How about you, T?
I'm grateful to be here. So we keep saying it's an amazing, incredible time to be a soul having a human experience, and it truly is, depending on your perspective. And so, yeah, when you're working more on the inside than the outside, and you're being and observing and taking care of self, and especially this weekend, I didn't go on the phone very much. I checked in once with the kiddo. She was like, "Mom, where are you?" And definitely just a real beautiful weekend of unplugging. David was there, and we had 3 other souls with us. So we were 6 in total, 3 men and 3 women, which was quite profound. Yeah. And 3 dogs, 3, 6, 9. And we're just, vibing high, so to speak. We had a really incredible visit. We had a really beautiful connection, unplugging, and a real reset. I rested, like deeply rested. I read 2 books. And for me, that's profound, because I don't have that opportunity at home.
I was proud of her. Believe me, I was so proud of her.
And Norma spoke more than I spoke, I think, over the weekend. Yeah. Hi, Shelley. How are you? Don't forget to share the video. It really helps with the algorithms, and we really appreciate you very much for being here, for supporting us. And we have Carolyn in the background. So thank you, Carolyn, for being here. And David's going to jump on at some point. So I happened to see David to do a transfer of a car key and some shorts that were forgotten, and some other goodies the boys forgot behind, because we stayed an extra night, just Norma and I, and really, really enjoyed that too, because it was like, there's nothing we have to do. Like it was just that real deep rest and relaxation. And I still haven't even been out in nature since being home, but we were definitely in nature quite a bit there. I have war wounds from the mozzies to prove it. Yeah, they're quite prolific there right now because of all the late rain and moisture. And we had a beautiful sweat lodge, and we did tap into July a little bit. We tapped into the collective. Buddha showed up. Norma Jean, you want to talk about Buddha showing up?
Wow, it was the night of the ceremony, and it was beautiful. It was so beautiful because we all went in just surrendering to, what it wanted to show us. And and for me that night, it was just being inside the sweat lodge. It's so, when you get in, it's like, oh, this is so subtle, it's so small. But when you get in there and you get to going through the many ceremonies that you do, the bigger and bigger that wound becomes within there, because I have to admit that I have one of the greatest gifts anybody could ever ask for, and that's the gift of sight. And you know, whether my eyes are closed or whether they're open, I may be able to just see something different, just depending on the level of darkness in where I am within myself. But I'm always seeing something profound. I'm always seeing something so beautiful, because the being that I am is showing this vessel where it is, what it's experiencing, what it's about, and in the connectivity, in the fullness of the wholeness of the one that granted me this gift to come here and experience this life. And in between those ceremonies, we come out, we take a breather, we allow those medicines that are through each those rounds to seep into this vessel, so that it helps this vessel to better function, and to get the vital essence of the things that we don't always have a chance and opportunity to get to each day or each week or whatever it may be. And standing outside, I was looking up at the stars, and I'm just seeing another womb when I look up in the sky, and the stars are what lights this womb of darkness for us. We are those stars. And so while I was looking up there, I could see the silhouette of Buddha, and I could almost see other things. And mind you, this go around for the ceremony, I didn't take anything. I because I didn't want to plan on more medicine. I wanted to just go in and have a experience of clarity, just with more of my faculties in that sense of a way. So
Absolutely. And look who's here. Surprise! Hi, David. How are you?
Hello, ladies, everybody.
Yeah. Awesome. Very impromptu. David was unable to do his live this week. And it's funny because we all took a week off. We weren't on the Sunday, right? So, yeah.
That's right.
And I didn't go on last Wednesday. So it's been a little bit of a space and a gap. So, yeah, quite needed.
Totally. I apologize to my viewers who missed me. Apparently it was a thing then, I'd love to say that, unfortunately, that it wasn't for a good reason, but it was. And to be honest, I had a meeting I couldn't not meet. And I'm just so thrilled with how it worked out. Although I'm sure we're going to catch up, of course, right? And a shout out to Lori Cowling, who's going to be my guest, for being so gracious as well. And sometimes, life happens while you're making plans, right?
Yeah. And it was just earlier today, as I was dropping that stuff off, that I got the call, like, yeah, all three of you should go on today. Because I kept, all that kept coming up when I'm thinking about the day, there's something I want to share, and there's a message coming in, and all it was Vidette. And so we're all at this point deeply connected to Vidette as the land, as the energy, as the space. And David, I just profoundly thank you for being the lodge keeper and for being connected with you and having this opportunity to share these adventures with you and Norma and Ashala when she comes, right? We're very, very blessed. And Ruth, who's taken over the space, has been ever so patient, because she's not spiritual per se, and that's okay. She's there to clean up the land, protect the land, and she just doesn't know what she doesn't know. So she's come up with a lot of questions for us, and we've been very patient and accommodating and not reacting, and it's worked out quite well.
As it should be.
Yeah.
It's unfolding as it should, exactly. If you remember when I first, was pulled out to Vidette because you wanted to share that space with me, it wasn't my first time on the land, and I already had a kind of existing acquaintance relationship with her, of course, when I encountered that lodge that was there, and the poor thing was suffering. So, we started asking, because when you encounter a sacred spot like that, if it's being miskept or just neglected, right? It is. I belong to a lodge keeper society, on top of being trained traditionally and in a variety of different styles and cultures, all the way from Anishinaabe Hunters Lodge to Mescal in the south to kind of everything in between. And so the lodge has been a big part of my life, most of my life. I can honestly say that, got my first firekeeping training way out in Enoch Cree country, Devon, Edmonton area, long time ago, you know, and it's been a journey ever since. And so what a blessing and an opportunity to be perfectly honest it is for me. This is obviously a sacred site. It's not just from our mall. This is from around the world. There are organizations who recognize this space as being, you know, something of significance, whatever that might be to them specifically. But even myself and yourself, one of the things that keeps drawing us to this space is that we know it's the center of the wheel. You know, it's the center of there is something going on there. We know that our intentions from there make it to the rest of the universe, right? You know, so somehow when I speak my prayers in that space, it just seems to me that with my radar, it hits all the corners of the universe, you know. And so when I inquired and about the lodge, and it came back that the local Swinomic people, you know, very much would like to see it continue, and not only just continue, but they provided the materials for us to rebuild, actually, and that we did. Some yellow willow became, you know, the ribs and the rest of it for the actual lodge itself, and we have a red willow specifically chosen for the door and the teachings that went along with that. And you know, we were just actually, while we're out here this time, recognizing it's now been 4 years. Yeah, you know, and in my teachings, when it was what we set up was a temporary lodge, if you like, right? You know, and after 4 years, it's either time for that space to be honored with a full-time lodge, or it might be time for, you know, that lodge itself to be, you know, move on, because everything has a cycle, right? You know, and so you know, and it might have something to do, to be honest, with, you know, in the indigenous of old, they really stayed in one place, right? You know, and so often what would happen is they'd build a lodge here, if you like, and then they go for a walkabout, right? So, you know, and that walkabout through all the different territories and all the different spaces, you know, because they're following hunting and they're following, and they would commonly do the circuit, if you want to call it that, and because wherever they left from, it would have 3 years for it to heal and refurbish and resupply and restock those berries and the animals, and you know, and then they come around again. So 4 years later, you might likely encounter that space that you had a lodge previously, right? You know, and so it's either time to rebuild and again, this is just me theorizing, you know, maybe even overthinking it, but had to be something done with that lodge, and we fired it up, and you've done enough with me, and I'm sure you've had experiences previously, but no two lodges are the same, ever.
Yeah.
Ever. And this one was no exception. One thing I'll also point out is the sweat lodge itself as a terminology. It's actually technically, and this was taught to me by Lakota Sioux people, the term technically is the Stone People's Purification Lodge. And the Stone People, of course, are those lava rocks that in this area are so prolific. I know some poor lodge keepers have 12 rocks to deal with. That's it. You know what I'm saying? And if they crack, they're just weeping, right? You know, because these things are so rare to come by. And yet, in this lodge space, you know, we can load up a lodge with 50 rocks, and I'm not even kidding, like 600 that we're looking at, you know, within arm's reach. It's just such a prolific location to be able to access that as well. To be honest, I, you know, asked permission, and I grabbed a rack of rocks, or, you know, a grouping of rocks for a friend of mine who's down in Blackfoot country building a lodge, and they don't have rocks like we got rocks there at Vidette. And I thought, what better place for them to come from, right? You know, and I know this man's a Blackfoot, and he walks his walk in a good way, and you know, so I'm going to make my way out there this summer and to bring him these rocks. I did the same thing a while back out in Lloydminster, and I brought what I thought was going to be a set for one lodge. You know, I'm saying, I think it was like 16 rocks or something like that, right? And that's enough to do a decent lodge, right? So, you know, never mind this loading it with 50. I mean, it's already preposterous, right? You know, but the dynamic is interesting. When I hit Lloydminster with these, you know, I can't remember, was it 16 or 18 or something like that rocks. What happened was that different lodges grabbed pieces of it. You know what I'm saying? They grab 4 and put them in this lodge over here and 4 over there. And because, again, they're so rare, right? Yeah, you know, and I could spend all day talking about lodge, but
so that makes me curious then. So if they're not using volcanic rocks, which, just to explain to everyone, they're hollow, right? They're lighter weight. And when they're fired up and in the coals for hours to get really hot, and then they come in sequence into the lodge, and then they look like part of space. The lodge is all dark.
Well, because they glow, right? You know,
Yeah.
when they come out of that fire, they're, I mean, minimum 2000. If they're glowing orange, they're 2000 degrees, right?
Yeah.
If you get into the white spectrum, which is a little bit too much of too hot so often for a natural fire, it happens. You know, you can get a real skookum heat going on there and get the occasional white rock coming out, but most times you got this yellowy to an orange, you know,
Yeah.
and you know they're about 2000 degrees, and then they're ready. They're it's like a baked potato. They're ready, right? So
Right. So what are they using if they don't have volcanic
well,
rocks?
unfortunately, they're doing their very best to find rocks that don't hold moisture. And here's one of the reasons, the safety reasons for using volcanic rock, and not just we're talking landscaping volcanic rock, but true, you know, I mean, lava rock itself,
Yeah.
out of the earth, you know, kind of an idea is that it won't explode so often. A farmer's rock, for example, will contain moisture. And then when you heat that baby up and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just glowing red freaking hot, you get it in the pit and you add water to that, grenade.
Yeah.
There's even been a time, I've never actually witnessed it, but there was one elder that I had who he had a lifetime of pouring. And it was actually just within his last few lodges that he had even a lava rock grenade. You know, and I mean, luckily nobody was seriously injured, but you can imagine, you know, and I'm not using the term grenade lightly, right? You know, for sure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's the danger of using just a regular farmer's rock. If anybody at home is going to try and just, you know, grab a rock and heat it up and, you know, try and duplicate the steam and so that, I mean, buyer beware kind of idea, because you really need to know what kind of rock you're using, because there can be some extraordinary damage. And there are rocks that are worse than others, right? You know, you can grab some rocks and potentially season them, which means on purpose remove them from any form of moisture, and you know what I'm saying, kind of almost temper them. You know what I'm saying? You know, you know, I've even had a few of those in few of my lodges over the years that weren't lava rocks, but you know what? They had such a strong history and such a strong power about them because they've been tempered in that hot cold, right? You know, and so you can do it, but it's so much easier just to grab a lava rock and you know what you got and you know what it's not going to do, and
Well,
and so yeah.
and we can collect them right up at the waterfall,
It's amazing.
especially when it's low in the summer. So maybe we should be collecting a few for other tribes, so to speak. Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's how it works. We have a prolification of this particular medicine, right? You know, the sacred reason of petrified rock, probably not. You know, to be honest, petrified rock is kind of wood, isn't it? You know, it starts as wood, you know, whereas again, jet, you know, it's kind of a petrified rock, but also it's only found specifically under the ocean, right? The actual stone of jet is called jet, right? You know? Yeah. And so I've never, I don't know, fire up a lodge and throw in a few petrified rocks. Let me know how it works for you. You know, I'm going to stick with what I know, because
Yeah.
right? You know,
And building that lodge was my first introduction. And
Mm.
so I felt very honored to be able to learn the history and understand it more, because I honestly at Vidette, I'm like, I don't know what that is. The people are asking me, and I'm like, I don't know, right? Because I just didn't know, and now I know the whole story. But just wanted to ask Norma Jean, you know, you've had a couple lodges now, and so you'd never had lodges before, and you've had one with a elevated experience, so to speak, and then one with a surrender experience, so to speak.
Complete. Yeah. You know, in the last time, because when we had it back in April, I didn't get a chance to come up and help with the blankets putting that on top of the structure, because I was a little busy. So, but this time I got a chance and opportunity to come up there and be a part of everything and all the process. And, you know, it's a wonderful thing to see it come together and to be a part of the, you know, that essence, because, you know, you have the masculine, you have the feminine essence. And, you know, it's one of those that when you get a chance and opportunity to be a part of something and you build it together with a community, you know, it's seeing it all come together. It's beautiful. It's profound. And, you know, that's when you really begin to understand what community truly stands for. And in that community is able to go into this one womb and come out transformed and elevated and having different, levels of understandings through the sight, whether it be that it's, it's going in through the skin, it's through the ears, through the senses of, smell. And, for me, I was talking with T earlier that, I have to admit, I have one of the greatest gifts in the world, and that's the gift of sight. And, in expressing to them, being able to be inside this womb. And, even though you look at the sweat lodge and the structure and you're like, whoa, that's, it's kind of little, but once you get in there, it becomes so huge and it's never ending. Yeah. It's a spiral. It literally is. And, it's, I went up there with the intention, sort of kind of put there as well, because on our drive up there, what was taking place was, the air element was talking to me. It was like getting my attention. Where you've been behind, or, not really behind, but let's go. You got some catching up to do, So when I got up there, the elements have just gotten to where it's like so easy for me to tap back into them whenever I get out of this place of focus, in this, this level of the, experience of this world that we, that we're in sometimes. And, when we're focused so much in that place, and when we do get away from there, when you tap in, you tap in. But if you go away for some time and you come back to that place of tapping in, they're on you, because it's like, let's not get lost again. Let's keep on this track. Let's keep going. Stay with it now. Stay with it. We've missed you, because I've missed talking with those elements. And so it's like, since this weekend, I've been, just so open to what the elementals are wanting to express to me, to show me on our ride back. That was fascinating as well, because I just get to see so much, and I'm just so elated by what they are giving me to understand the world that I am first, so that I may be able to express it to others in a way that helps them to understand the world that they are, because the organism that we are is the organism in which we are having this experience on, having this experience with, having this experience in. And so I'm just, grateful to be where I am, who I am, with who I'm doing this with. And thank you.
We stopped at Shannon Falls. Something was going on in Whistler, and it was like really heavy energy, because we came down through Whistler, and it was like, I don't know what's going on here. But then we went and sat, like I went and climbed the fence and went over the rocks and just sat down. It was like, yeah, just take that one away. But it was really good to just do a bit of a rest and reset, because, it's a bit of a drive coming that way, but it's a beautiful drive. So many pyramids.
And the elementals were playing. I mean, I was seeing. Yeah, I'm going to stop now, because I can keep talking about this all day long.
I know. Let's go back to the lodge. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Jessica. Glad to have you here. Of course, you
climbed the fence, rebel.
Yeah, Michelle knows me well.
Yep.
There was once I was down at near where the float homes are here in North Van, and there's a little beach area, but it says private property, do not. And I'm running around in the sand, and somebody took a picture of me with the dog playing "Do Not Enter," and there's me, of course. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. David, why don't we share a little bit about the significance of the lodge, of the structure of the lodge, and then the meaning of the altar, and then with the fire?
Well, boy, I mean, there's a can of worms in a big way there. To be honest, and this is a couple of different theories that I'm going to lay out. And these couple of theories are ones that I've solidified and kind of walk as my own, knowing that there are even other perspectives and dynamics that are at play here, right? And so just know everything that I'm sharing is from my own perspective, but it is from the accumulation of so many different teachers teaching me so many variety, and there's so many common denominators that are involved in it, right? And so you can anticipate and expect 101 that the hut that we're talking about that you sit in, and that's made out of ribs, which are basically so often just a willow trees that are bent together and, you know, tied, and then you have a tent pole, if you like, right? You know, and you tie them together and you got another tent pole, and it's not much different than putting together a tent, right? You know,
Right?
that
Yeah.
way, you know. And there's a ring that goes around them to hold them in place, but to be honest, there's a language in the lodge as well, that the amount of rings that you have around the lodge and where they're positioned, to be honest, if somebody who has eyes to see would be able to look at that lodge and know the designation of that lodge, maybe what it does, who is the lodge
Mm.
keeper, and what is their position in the community. Like there's a lot of information that's provided, again, for those who just have eyes to see, right? You know, somebody
Mhm.
who, like myself as a lodge keeper, I was able to stub my toe in this lodge, and I knew already half the story because of how it was built. Does that make sense, right? To you,
Yeah.
you know, and so, you know, you lean in that way, but ultimately that hut, that lodge itself that you go into is the womb. It's the divine female. It's the Holy Grail, right? You know, it's that place, but it's also recognized very much as a stargate, right? You know, the number of ribs, you know, in the tent also talk about, again, what it does. Some are really good, just general community healers, if you like, and
Mm.
you know, I've myself poured lodge, you know, literally 5 days a week sometimes, right? You know, because I was running a lodge that was just for the community, and everybody, literally everybody came through the doors, right? So, you know, it's great practice for someone, you know, stepping into that space too, right? You know, because you encounter all sorts of different things, right? You know, for sure, because it's always our mistakes that we learn from, right? You know,
Right?
or you know, and so that's the Holy Grail, this divine female, if you like, right? You know, and in so many traditions, it's actually the women who care for that space, very much like midwives, if you like, right? You know, you know, when you show up, it's this rack, you know, with no blankets on it, right? You know, and it's the women who, by their efforts and their work and coming together as women, you know, I mean, if they need a helping hand from a masculine in some place, you know, lift that heavy thing over there, that's one thing, but it's technically supposed to be the women in that role. And I mean this with no misogyny or misandry in any way, shape, or form. It's we're tending to a woman's needs, this hut, this lodge, this divine female. Who knows better, right? You know, I mean, in any way, shape, or form, right? And how to and who should. And so these women, just like Norma was saying as well, will come together as a team, as a group, as this unified energy. It's so wonderful to see even women who maybe don't even like each other come together in this space, and it's about celebrating womanhood. It's about celebrating who and how that part of you shows up, right? You know, for sure. And so, you know, it's just wonderful to see. And the womb grows, right? As the blankets, just like the womb grows over those 9 months, right? You know, for sure. Because ultimately, in every one of those pits, if you like, or those lodges, there'll be a pit in the center of it, right? You know, not 100, not 1,000% of the time. I've been in lots that just had, you know, open ground. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you gave those rocks some respect, you know, for sure. But I like to, I mean, have a pit, a nice secure pit for a couple of different reasons, including access route-wise into the center of the earth itself, but also for safety protocols. And there's just so many good reasons, you know. And so
You got 55 rocks in there. I hope so.
maybe 50 rocks in there, you know, might be, yeah, and even then they crowned over the top just a little bit, right? So, you know, for
Right?
sure. I've been
Yeah.
in some lodges that were, you know, literally, you know, weren't as wonderful. This is a Cadillac we built there. You know, I mean, it was built for us, but it's a Cadillac we're running here in the sense that we have lots of room for lots of rocks. Because I've been in some where even just with 20 rocks, for example, you do have yourself a mashed potato mound there, right? You know, nobody knocked that over, right? You know, kind of idea, yeah, you know, and so it happens, yeah, you know. And so anyway, ultimately, I mean this in no crudeness in any way, shape, or form. It really is an act of conception that we're talking about here, life showing up, right? Because we have this womb, that's the divine female, and across and out the door there, we have this fire going with those rocks being heated, right? So, you know, for sure. Now, spiritually, each one of those rocks comes from the center of the earth, and it brings with you things like ormus, and it brings with you minerals and messages. You know, these lava rocks have been around forever, right? And they have a long memory, you know, and they've been talking to your ancestors, you know, and it's like, it's kind of like this really, 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 really old person coming up to you and saying, I knew your great, 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 great grandfather, whippersnapper, right? Yeah, you know, here's some what he told me to tell you, right? You know, it's, if you like, it's kind of like that, right? You know, And so each one of those rocks, technically, that gets heated in that fire, the masculine fire, that fire is about the male, about the heat, about the, that power, right? So, for sure that shows up in that, and directed appropriately. As a matter of fact, it's actually more often than not when a young man starts looking at Pocahontas that way, it's time to send him to be a firekeeper. Because he's going to learn how to work with that energy, and through learning to be a firekeeper, it's a rite of passage, right? So for sure, it's about him stepping into manhood and knowing what to do with that fire inside, right? So for sure, and so. To be honest, and again, with no disrespect or immaturity, you could look to the fires if you like the testes, right? So, I'm saying? The reason boys have it on the outside is because there's so much heat. It's like a radiator, right? So, biologically speaking, right? And
Yeah.
so same thing with the fire, it's where that heat happens, right? And so when a young man is trying to understand that heat, oh, this is where it happens. Right. So, and he learns how to provide for that fire. He learns about the balancing of the elements. He learns how, a big showy fire, big bonfire, I ain't going to heat those rocks right. What you need is that slow burn, right? So, for sure, which is how it's kind of supposed to be done, right? That's how it's supposed to be done, right?
Yeah.
And so
I'm reading your mail.
you're heating these rocks till they're ready, right? And again, which is another dynamic as well, don't rush it. People ask me all the time. The other day you asked me, so when are the rocks going to be done? My answer at all, 100% of the time is when they're ready. It could be half an hour from now. Typically it's 2 to 2.5 hours, is a good hosting time, right? So, for sure. But when they're ready is the answer and not a second sooner. And we'll all know because we'll all hear them, right? And feel them. And, okay, time to get in, for sure, And so we have the heat, the fire, and the rocks, and we have this darkened space, right? The cool, right? The divine female, right? And then we've got this altar in the center of it. Now, interestingly enough, we could also take this one step further, and the fire is the sun, and the actual lodge itself is the Mother Earth. Right. So, and so you're also lining up these celestial bodies. Of course, the altar would then in that case represent that moon. Right. For sure. And anything you.
Isn't the altar, sorry, I just want to clarify for people because most won't know this. Isn't the altar from digging out the pit within the lodge?
Well, yes. As a matter of fact, it should be. That's traditionally how I was taught, is that when you unearth the earth, the soil from your pit, that becomes your altar.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, an Anishinaabe Hunter's Lodge teaching is that when you leave, all of your ribs get taken down. You might actually hang on to your prayer ties, which is the things that tie all the ribs together, okay? You might hang on to those from one lodge to the other, considering that some of them might actually be fancy, right? So, kind of an idea. But you would burn your sticks in your fire, and then you would take that altar, and you would refill that hole. So that when you're done, you just pat, 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 pat. And you know what? A couple of days later, nobody would even know a lodge was there. That's kind of what's supposed to happen. You bury your fire, your soot, and all that stuff, right? And so pass without trace is a very, very part of that dynamic, right?
Yeah.
Totally. And the altar is used to place. Wrap your head around this. Let's say that between the lodge and the fire, it's actually a figure 8 energy that's coming on, the yin yang symbol, right? That infinity, which is again ultimately the most ancient of union symbols of the yin and yang, right? For sure. And so wherever they crisscross, that's where you're going to place your altar, because that's where the juice is going to be. That's where all the prayer is going to end up. That's where all the sacred lands, There's also another teaching that when you step outside that lodge door, it's important to realize we always have it when we're born, because that's actually what we're doing here, right? For sure, is being born. As soon as you step out of that womb, we're faced with choices. Right. And so on that altar are precious things a lot of times that you don't want to hurt. So you have a choice of right or left. Right. So immediately you're faced with your first choice. Right. Honoring the circle and the energy means that you should technically be heading left. Right. To honor the circle. But that's not always how it works out. Right. And so there's a variety of different reasons for this. I'll also teach you this thing about the altar is interesting, because I just mentioned the infinity symbol and how the altar so often is placed dead center in that, okay? What's interesting is that it's typically only about 3 feet at the maximum away from the front door of the lodge itself. So that, to be honest, unfortunately, if you came racing out of that door, you know, and your eyes are full of stuff and you're wailing and carrying on, or something's going wrong, you could honestly, unfortunately, trip over that altar, right? You know, for sure. And so what's interesting is that when I was building it about 3 feet maximum from the front door of the lodge, in my perspective, it wasn't ending up dead center. Does that make sense? You know, because I was always also taught, you have to make sure your fire is at least 6 feet away from the altar. And I'm like, yeah, but if I do the math, 3 feet from here and 6 from there, technically the way I've learned over the years now is that the infinity symbol encompasses the fire and the back of the lodge too, not from the center. It, you know what I'm saying? And that's because that's how the energy is flowing versus how my mathematical mind worked, right? You know, another part, and here's another part of why you do it this way. You have to have that, the measurement from the altar of 6 feet to the fire is because if some Yahoo doesn't stop and trips over the altar, he's not going to end up in the fire at least. Right? Yeah, you know, for sure. And so sometimes it's pure common sense, right? You know, you know, like the adage of when you step in, you can step inside the lodge, and even in many cases, you're honoring this energy flow. You know, it's not so uncommon. You guys experience that yourself when you enter the lodge. You travel from the left around to the right. Even if you're sitting on the far right over here, you enter in and you travel all the way around. If you're not fit for that, or, you know, it's just too cumbersome, you can anchor in and intend. Does that make sense? You know, but
you can send your energy for a lap.
Exactly. Yeah, you send your energy for a lap. But ideally, one of the reasons why also you go in, and you can say it's for spiritual reasons and all these other things, but if you have an indoor and an outdoor, in any busy restaurant, you're going to know the value of it very quickly, right? You know, and so it doesn't create this with people or energies. Does it make sense, right? So, you know, a teepee teaching is the same. When you step into a teepee, step left, right? You know, and it just becomes habitual. So everybody in the entire community, you know, yes, we're taught, or they're taught, and I'm taught that, you know what, you're doing it for a variety of reasons, but some of them are just plain old common sense.
Right.
You know, as simple as that, right? You know,
beautiful.
and
so
the water is handled by the women as well, because that's Holy Grail, sacred vessel. You know, all that. It's wonderful. We're teaching you the water song, which is a common song. You know, and some of these songs that I share are not common songs. They're proprietary, if you like. They've been gifted to me specifically for my use, right? You know, but some of the ones that we're singing there, of course, are common songs. And sometimes we're singing top 40 stuff too. Like it's wherever we're inspired, right? You know, we had a great round of Amazing Grace this last time, you know, and you know, it's wherever we're inspired, because it's not about mimicry, it's not about parroting. You know, it's important that each person that steps into that space has an ancestral remembering, because each one of our cultures, wherever you're from, red and yellow, black and white, you got some history with this thing, right? You know, with this ceremony, because it's been done forever. I mean, Norses and the Asians and the Greeks and the you know, the Mexicans, and everyone's got their version of it, right? You know, for sure. And so we have a memory inside of us. This is absolutely the number one best way to purify your body of heavy metals. That's a really serious concern these days, is it not? Right? You know, for sure. And so, yes, a sweat, even if you just go to your local pool, your recreation center, and sit in there, oh my goodness, please do, right? You know, for sure. But it's the best way to purify. It opens up your lymph nodes. I mean, I'm sure you also pay attention to the fact of the smells, right, of the herbs that are being used, right? Every round we go in, I've been taught over my lifetime to use certain recipe, right? You know, and it's going to vary depending completely upon who's there and what they need, right? You know, I have a whole rack. I'm sure you noticed I actually had my big bag. I pull it out before every lodge and I go through it and I meditate. And some medicines, I don't even know why I'm grabbing them until I get in there and someone says, oh, yeah, I really respond to that medicine. Because if they're really drawn to it, responding to it, I hit the right mark, right?
Yes.
You know, we can sit down and reverse diagnose it and realize that, yeah, that medicine fits exactly what your ailment is. And you didn't tell it to me in advance, right? So, you know, if you know how many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times that's happened, right? So I just go with my instincts, knowing it's going to be bang on, right? So, you know,
right.
Who's talking to me kinesiology wise? If you like, I douse it. You know what I'm saying? Best way, I just don't use the tool, right? So, you know, I just use, I am the tool, right? You know,
absolutely. Absolutely. I just want to add in too. So Caroline was asking, how does it get hot? So a couple things, Caroline. The blankets get wrapped and wrapped and wrapped until it's dark inside, even when it's light outside. so that we know we're thick enough, and it gets tucked down to the very bottom and rocks put on it to make sure that heat is contained. Now, that being said, one can lie down and it's not as hot as if you're sitting up. Or like David was this time, he's sitting on a stump and he's up higher than everybody else thinking, oh, I got this. Well, it happened to be one of the hottest lodges we've ever had there for sure.
It's amazing. I still have the stool because it usually doesn't get that hot for me, right? And the higher you, if you stand up in a lodge, trust me, you're taking on more heat. Just like the heat will typically Torah effect, right? So you know that's how it works. The heat rises out of that pit, actually then rides the egg shape of the dome itself and does this, right? You know,
Yeah.
It's interesting. Some people think that they're going to get away from the heat by backing away against the wall, get away from the hot rocks, but they're actually going to find themselves smack in the middle of that Torah, right? You see? So you're actually better off to cuddle the rocks a little bit, but hug the ground, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, get close to the pit and hug the ground as much as possible, you know, for sure.
Yeah. I was lying down on those last.
I also want to point out that it's important
Mhm.
that they're blankets or something that breathes. I've seen too many dangerous situations where people think wrapping a sweat lodge in plastic is a good idea.
Ooh.
And it's not. One poisons, There's actually been some travesties happen from this dynamic in the past. And so, you know, stick with something that breathes a little bit, right? Even if you have to put 3 or 4 layers to get your darkness, right? You know, for sure. Typically, a blanket that shows up for the lodge is a family or a personal blanket. You'll bring it to the lodge, you'll place it on the lodge, and that brings a little piece of you, doesn't it? Right? You know, I mean, even just to see your childhood blanket on that lodge, trust me, there's medicine in there, right? You know, for sure, just to even see it there, and it's contributing energetically. And then on the inside, all those good medicines and sage and all that, it's going to get cleaned and purified, and it's going to get imprinted with more prayers. Right. And so then you get to take that home with you afterwards, and it can be a part of your daily life, and you can carry that with you till the next lodge. Yeah, you know, for sure. And so that's kind of the history, if you like, of, you know, that. Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, Tango was asking earlier too about portals. So let's tap into portals a little bit. So there's the gist of the lodge, guys. And not only that, when you go out of the lodge and David's put the medicine on, you've had the steam and your pores are all open, and then you go out in the cool air, your pores all close, and you wait for the next round and you let your skin soak in that good medicine, and you don't shower that night. So you might be a little stinky with yourself, but that's good medicine you don't want to be washing off. And so it's okay when you're at Vidette to be a little bit stinky.
I got to tell you, and again, it is built that way. You know, the first serving is round 1. And to open up your pores, let me dump in these medicines through this homeopathic attached to each water molecule that's in there. The steam itself, it's the dosage of the medicine is homeopathic and it's complete and thorough. So it goes into those open pores. And then when you step outside and you close those pores, that good medicine stays inside and it does what it's doing, and it gets received and dispersed. And then a few minutes later, when your pores open one more time, they're fresh and ready to receive a new medicine that's going to do the same thing. And each round builds on the last until literally at the end of it, you're clean in almost every way. We've scrubbed everything, right? You know, lungs,
Right?
inside and out, and all of that stuff. And yeah, and you're right. Some people shower right away afterwards, but I tend to wait until the next day, and I wake up and just, oh my God, I remember that wake up moment. And, oh, I remember that spruce moment. And, you know, you can, and my skin is so soft because, well, maybe I stripped a layer off of it, you know.
Yeah, you fried yourself.
But I want to address the heat thing, okay? Because
Yeah.
so many people think that a sweat lodge or a purification lodge is a machismo contest of how much heat you can take, right? And that's the furthest from the truth, okay? Seriously. There's an act of surrender that happens within each of us that we're hoping to achieve. Yes, there's going to be this challenge, this heat, darkness, if you like, if that's an issue for you too, right? You know, there's going to be this challenge that's going to rub you a bit. But my job is to make sure I don't hurt you. Right? I've never, ever scolded anybody. Came close a few times, and maybe even just this last weekend, even myself, right? You know, but it's never happened where everyone and ran, you know, first aid, here we go, right? Blistering or anything, you know. And so the whole idea is we each have within us, and if you do the research on this, viewers, there's actually a lot to be said for this. When we challenge ourselves specifically with heat, there's a certain physiological response that comes from the body, and there are certain things that get released inside the body that don't show up in any other way, and it's literally like a anti-aging. Right, it's the fountain of youth. We could even go so far as to that crystal oil that some people are even talking about, the Kundalini dynamics, Merkaba. There's when you challenge yourself with that heat, all I'm looking for from each person in that circle is that surrender. That, oh my God, he's gonna kill me. Okay, fine, kill me. That's what I'm after, and then the heat stops. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And for it was interesting because this round. This lodge, the rocks coming in, and I don't know why, because we heat them the same way as we do every other time, and they came in hot. I was sitting back, and if it wasn't the hottest, it's pretty darn close to the hottest rocks I've ever met as a lodge keeper, to the point where typically what happens is fourth round, I'm coaxing heat out. Sometimes even earlier, in the rounds, I'm coaxing heat out. But in this case, there's no way I could even hit pedal to the metal. It's like this car's too fast. You know what I'm saying? Like, I needed something. Yeah, it was just too much. It was too much power, too much heat, too much everything. And my job, again, is to look through that physiological response, believe it or not, as comfortably as possible from people. I don't want to just push them. I don't want to just aggravate them. I want the medicines to also help, there was a Lakota woman, Susan Powell. Hey, she told me once, she says, because I was suffering in a lodge, she says, if you're suffering, you're not praying hard enough. And ideally what that means is if you're suffering, slip into that alpha state. Does that make sense? Right? Trust the fire that portioner is pouring knows what they're doing, or you shouldn't be in there in the first place. Right? For sure. I mean, trust, that they know what they're doing. Now you got to work on you. Right, and just go into your altered states and receive, right, for sure. Yeah, there are tricks like you can poke your fingers out underneath the bottom and draw some cold air, or hug the ground a little bit. And I mean, but honest to goodness, it's about altered state, right? And that's back to what we're talking about is stargates, right? For sure. Like, this is because you're in a sacred space, and somebody, the lifeguard, is on purpose paying attention to you, not just your outside of you, but the inside of you. And so this is actually one of the best places in the world to do some kind of journeying, traveling, connecting. Third round, and there's typically 4 rounds. Third round is so often that round when people meet their ancestors or spirit guides, or that's the woo-woo round, if you like, right? And if you let that lodge do its work, it will meet you on whatever level of weird woo-woo that you're bringing. I promise. You don't have to create. You don't have to even lean in. Just show up with who you are, and it'll meet you there. Or it can also meet you as, I'm just here to get some physical cleanup. You know what I'm saying? It'll meet you there too. No problem, but it'll go as deep or as high as you need or want it to go also, right? And my job is to make sure that you're safe inside and outside while you're in that sacred space, right? For sure. And so that means you have a lifeguard. Go ahead and be a little reckless. Go ahead and stretch, right?
Right. Absolutely. Tango was asking earlier about the portals, and Norma, I want you to speak about the ancient wisdom around the moons. Now, I believe that, yes, the fire pit is like a portal, energetic portal. So the lake is a portal for the dragon that's there, and dragons, because dragons reside in the middle of the earth and then can energetically come up where they choose. And I think Vidette is definitely one of those spots. Yeah. And then, of course, the center is its own energetic vortex. And Norma, I just want you to share your teachings, because we were discussing this while we were there regarding the Batman signal.
Yeah, I was actually there, of course, while we were there. I'm always taking in information at some level or whatever it may be, just to gain the knowledge, just to take it and have it tap into, the wisdom that it just does so great at tapping into with me. And so the beautiful thing is the one thing I come to understand was that Pythagoras actually used this method to be able to send secret information, secret signals to some of the villages that needed information at the time because of just things that were going on. So that way they would know what was going about to take place, or, you know, they could get a warning sign and things like that. But on a full moon, you could either use an image or write out symbols. That would be a language at that time. And if you set it outside, the moon basically would reflect that message or that image in the disc or the circle, so to speak, if you had the appropriate individual in those villages that knew what they were looking for, that were so attuned and so in,
Open.
oh yeah, you know, they knew how to read that. They knew what they were looking for. And so, you know, when we come to understand that, you know, the planets and the elements and, you know, the chakra systems and how this vessel is everything that we are experiencing here. When we begin to understand all of it is so interconnected, it is all a weaving, that when you come to understand that the elements are always telling you something, and this vessel is meant to use those senses in order to read what those elements are telling you, or what they are sharing with you, so to speak, if you know how to use this vessel for the elemental formation, so to speak, it took to create this vessel with. And so, you know, we, you know, you drew what it is that, you know, we were wanting to manifest, because what happens is when they see that, you're basically sending out your own little bat signal, you know, to the world, to the universe, to the ones who can see, hey, I'm over here, and this is who I am, and this is what I want to be able to bring to the world, and this is what I want to be able to accomplish in being able to provide this world with the information of the understanding of who they really are, and this is what I need. Could you do something for me? Can you do something for me here? So, you know, and so it's like, you know, I may not understand the fullness of the process, but I get it enough to understand why it was utilized. And, you know, while we were sitting there on the porch, there was a portal right directly across the pond, and I could see it. I could see the gatekeeper. I could see where the portal set. I could see, you know, what was being brought into that portal. And, you know, and depending on how the light hit it, depending on what type of, you know, gatekeeper I saw, because the gatekeeper changed all the time, yet it seemed like it was never moving, but it was. So, you know, when I look at this and I understand who I am, the world that I am first, it truly and significantly helps me to understand how I'm traversing this world within me. And it's being definitely in my experience. And this is my experience being reflected back to me, because I'm so, you know, in joy of just show me what this is, show me who I am, show me my purpose, show me what I'm here to do, to see, and to help guide, and you know, hopefully find the words to express, even though words are limiting. If I cannot express it through words, definitely allow me to have that vibration that allows me to, you know, send that signal out, and that even in that shape or in that form, to help people to recognize and realize you are profoundly beautiful. I know this because I keep coming more and more into that for myself. So,
yeah. David, you want to share a little on the portals?
Oh my, I mean,
Sasquatch too.
Where do you start, right? So, yeah.
right.
Where do you end?
I mean,
it doesn't.
All of these, exactly. That's just it. I mean, all of these tools, sweat lodges, teepees, arcs, altars, Stonehenges, you know, pyramids, they all have a relationship with ley line conjunctions. They all have a relationship with access points to different places, right? I had a Sasquatch sighting at Vidette there, almost 20 feet away from where that portal exists that you were talking to, you know. And I remember when you were sitting there on that porch, and you says, but it looks like they're just you're telling me, you're talking to me, and you said, it looks like they're standing completely still. And it's like, no, they're just moving so slow that it's tough for you to tell. You took a deeper look, and you went, oh my God, yes. Right. Mm-hmm. You know, So to me, you see, it's all about multidimensional, right? I've been an oracle my whole life, right? I was born that weird kid you hear about without any filters or nothing, right? And so for me, you know, these portals are all doorways. You know what? I will maybe share this one story. This, you know, I really appreciate this one. One of my most powerful teachers in this life when it comes to medicine and indigenous, you know, teachings and what have you, was a woman named Renee Peters. When Renee Peters passed away, she had me spend the night with her body in the longhouse the day before her funeral. Literally, when we were done the morning, that next morning, they came and did their ceremony. And some of the local community didn't understand, but you know, that was one of her last wishes, of course, and so they allowed it. And the next day, when there was questions about it, so what was that about? Yeah, you know. And my answer was that, you know, you all know me, and you know I've been in the around communities for my whole life, and Renee and I had a very special relationship. Well, you have to understand that one of the parts of the relationship her and I had was that she recognized, even as a young kid, I had these gifts. I had an awareness, a celestial awareness, if you like, a cosmic awareness that few people carry naturally. It can be trained a little, you know, that I've noticed over the lifetime, right, of helping others get there too. But for the most part, when you got this thing, it's like a Beethoven gets born to piano, right? You know, and so this is one of the things I do this life, you know, and so you all know this of me. And well, the best way for me to explain it to you is Renee knew that I knew where all the doors were, all of these stargates, right? If you want to call it that, right? You know, and some of these doors we're in and out of all the time. Humans are always accessing the medicine that's in these places. And so they have to be well maintained. And other doors we're not into and out of quite so often, but they still have to be looked after. And there are some of these doors that need to be kept shut forever. And the best way for me to tell you what happened last night was she handed me the keys. Yeah, you know? And so for me, dimensions, doorways, stargates, all of these dynamics is a part of life for me. It's not a theory or a concept and the ley
It
lines
is.
on this planet are literally just microcosm for the macrocosm that the entire universe is. And just like traveling through space, we're trying to bend, you know, space into itself. You can do that with stargates. You can enter here and find yourself in another when, you know, and there are no rules that are even beyond your imagination. You know, there are dimensions and dynamics that exist out there that how does it go? Al Horatio, there are, you know, weirder things in the universe and in heaven than, you know, man could even imagine, right? You know, talking to the skull and all. And so that's my truth. That's not just a theory. It's how I am and who I am. That's why I've been an oracle literally my entire life. That's what I do, right? You know, because it's tough to know that these stargates exist and these dimensional critters and all that are a part of our everyday life, and be an accountant, you know. it's tough, right? And to be perfectly honest, it's one of the reasons why I lean into these ceremonies that are ancient, because there's value in it for me. I love sharing it with others. I love being able to be that person in service of this lodge at that most sacred space. That fills me personally with a sense of accomplishment, of, you know, kind of like, you know, blessed is the man who plants seeds for trees he'll never see the shade of, right? You know, the
100%.
highest calling that a person can answer is to be in service of something greater than themselves, right? Yeah, you know, and so I'm absolutely getting plenty of this by being responsible for that energy and what goes on there in that good way, right? You know, and so I appreciate. I've said to you plenty of times, Tanja, I have so many times in this lifetime said, I'm going up there and I'm going to do a lodge whether anybody joins me or not. And this has
Yeah.
been not just Vidette, but anywhere. And I have
Yeah.
never not once, had a lodge all by myself. You know, it's like they know, they can smell the rocks cooking, you know, and the pickup trucks show up at the last minute with their blankets, right? You know, it's just so. Yeah, and I love every second of it. It draws those people who, if the viewer, you're drawn to this as a medicine in your world, you know what, talk to Tanja. Maybe we'll put together a weekend for you, right? You know, totally. Yeah. And you know, there's just something really, really, really powerful about these old teachings, especially now. Humans need not just want, but need to be reminded how far back they've come, and have conversations with their genetics, and have conversations with that ancient voice inside of ourselves, right? And I'm convinced that it's places like the Vidette and it's ceremonies like the Lodge, and we do lots of stuff over the weekend there. It's not even just the Lodge, right? I mean, we haven't even started about some of the other stuff. Yeah, totally. But this is how it's done. This is how we get there. This is how we get clear. This is how we get clarity. This is how we not only overcome some of these dynamics that are taking place, but we thrive through them.
Right.
Surf is up,
It's those that know that go, chaos, fuck, let's go.
Exactly.
It's like there's a party happening, right? Yeah, absolutely. It's all about where you're watching the party from.
No doubt. Yeah.
Right. And we
must be horrible for watch this party from the cheap seats down there, right? Totally, right?
Nosebleed.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Give me the nosebleeds. Absolutely, no problem. I get the bird's eye view, right? I know what's going on down there. I even know the songs. Totally.
Yeah. So what I think we'll do from this, guys, is we'll put a little video together, Norma Jean, with photos and videos of the Lodge, and then be able to share that with you guys so you can really feel it. And I just want to say it's now become a profound part of my life, because when we were in Mexico, I was like, we need to go to a Lodge. And then even a good friend of mine, Jim, does these cold plunges and yoga, and he's got a sauna, and even that has, you're allowed to put in, like, bring some essentials, right? So you can bring some medicine with you. And so I highly recommend. It is an integral part of cleansing your body, purifying your soul, and combined with good friends and connection, it's just been, I really do love Vidette Lake. I think we all do. Yeah, it's a profound spot to be in. So just thank you guys for sharing it and coming on today to share a bit more, because that's all I kept getting all day was Vidette, Vidette, Vidette. So Vidette's still calling me. Don't forget.
Totally.
Yeah. So we do have a visit, guys, in July. So, and hey, if you're flying in, we'll pick you up at the airport and we'll take care of you. So you can experience this too. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. We'll definitely have 2 full lodges for this one. And yeah, what's calling your soul right now? Yeah. Hello, Carmela. You're good. Don't worry about it. You can always watch the replay. Parting words, David?
Come play. Come join us. Come find yourself. Totally.
Yeah.
Come find yourself. We know we can teach you how.
Yeah. Come find your tribe.
Yeah. No doubt.
Norma?
Yeah, for sure. Come join us and come as you are, because coming and meeting us where we are, you're going to have fun. I guarantee you. You're going to be able to express yourself in ways you never thought you could, because here is understand that the 3 of us sitting here will meet you where you are, regardless of what that is, because we'll know who you are through that. So come see us, come join us, come commune with us, come celebrate with us.
It is definitely a celebration. We have wrapped it around a full moon. July just is a bang up energy coming on board right now. Can you feel it? Because it's palpable to me. And just like Caroline was saying, that she's thinking, oh, my car needs an oil change, and boom, the light comes on. This is part of those synchronicities happening. If you're being the observer and you're paying attention and you're caring about self and being kind to others, you're going to find that this is going to speed up over the next month like never before. And then again through August. I'm so excited. August is like my month. It's my birthday month. So watch out for the energies there, because I'm looking forward to it. So thank you for joining us, and have a beautiful evening. We love you.